Welcome back to We Burn Blue. I'm Prashant, one of your hosts. Sharon, how's it going, man? It's been some time since we last recorded.
Yeah, it has. I mean, 3 episodes in, and we're already behind schedule, but otherwise doing fantastic.
Yeah, life gets in the way sometimes. If you like what you heard so far, though, leave us a review, like, share, subscribe wherever you're listening, and let us know if you have any feedback. Give us a shout on Twitter as well. So moving on, we're going to discuss the not so trivial matter of the UEFA Conference League, the third tier of the European competition that we find ourselves in, Sharon.
This is European football we're holding on to this season. Thursday night football, right? That should be that should be something to look forward to. I'm not really sure how the players and the management and staff actually feel about it, but yeah, at least we get to watch some extra Chelsea games this season.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it seems to be a season of first, right? It's the first season where we have an ownership brawl. It's the first season where we're in a relatively new European competition, and it's our first chance to win another first for the club, right? We'd be the only club to ever have won every single competition should we win this.
Yep, always the optimist, Prashant. I mean, yeah, we can truly say we won it all after this. Um, so hopefully we go on and win it. But yeah, I guess we'll come to maybe potential reasons as to why it's going to be a little bit tougher than we think. But
Mhm.
maybe, you know what, since we're talking about it, why don't we just start off with our expectations, maybe before we go into, how the tournament's going to work and stuff. So what do you want out of the time spent in this competition?
I think it's pretty simple for me, right? I just said it, we've basically won everything there is to win until UEFA decided to introduce yet another competition, giving us one more to aspire to. So I think, given the level of competition, given how the team is shaping up, especially with September's results, I think we should be looking to win this. My expectation, if I look at every game, is it's a dub. I mean, I am the optimistic one. It might be too many vibes, but that's what I'd expect. What about you?
So just to clarify, you're expecting no draws, no losses. Your expectations are wins all the way through. Yeah.
With the depth we have, yes.
No, no, honestly, man, I back that. I think yeah, dropping points it could happen or maybe losing a leg here or there, but yeah, I mean ultimately we're clearly the strongest squad in the tournament. Guaranteeing Europa League qualification is also a very exciting carrot for this tournament, winning this tournament, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all about the revenues, right? So European football is great. Champions League is obviously the holy grail. But if we can't get that, if we can get Europa qualification through a win in this, and we don't have to then worry about league position, not saying that we should not focus on the league. I still expect us to finish in the top four and get that Champions League qualification. But this this offers another route into this, at least the Europa, which I think is something we should be playing for regardless.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And some other expectations I have for this is I want to see, our top players or our first 11 essentially all being rested every time we're playing a match in this competition. Frankly, I think, like you said, with the backup team that we have, and the depth in the squad, we really shouldn't be touching any of our first team players, and giving them minutes in this competition, unless for whatever reason, they need minutes from recovery, right? From injury recovery. So I'm looking at a Reece James potentially seeing some game time in this competition just because he needs to build himself up. And clearly he's not ready for the Premier League, frankly. So even though he's had a solid preseason as well, this is really a competition to find out a bit more about the guys who aren't playing in the Premier League, and give them minutes, let them learn the system. And, with that, ideally, they become potential challengers for the first team minutes. And that actually increases the internal competition in the squad. And I think you're pretty excited as well about, some of the players who are a lot younger than than the ones we have, which is not really saying much. But Yeah, I think you're hoping to see a few of the Chelsea Academy boys playing in this competition. Yeah.
Yeah, I suspect it'll be something like we saw against Barrow, where you had the likes of Achimpong on the bench, and we saw Carney making an appearance. We'll see the likes of Mark Q get a run out. And I mean, with the Barrow game, there were 11 changes, right? So we do have enough depth to actually do that. And I think you make some fair points even regarding players like Reece James who are coming back from injury. So and of course, we already know, right? The big thing we alluded to last time as well, the load management. Cole Palmer isn't even in the squad. So I think Maresca and the coaches are also seeing it in the same way, where it's an opportunity to give players game time who aren't playing regularly in the league and maybe have like an A team and a B team essentially. Yeah, coming back to the sort of the level of competition, I think it should work for us. It should work in our favor to be able to do that. Definitely.
Yeah, so you've mentioned pretty key thing there, right? I mean, Cole Palmer not even being registered, which to be honest, I'm fine with. Ultimately, the guy needs a break, and we shouldn't need him to come and bail us out. But in previous years where, we've had decent squads in Europe, um, Hazard might have been brought on to change a game because all of a sudden in the Europa League or UEFA, whatever it was called before, right? Um, Surprisingly, you find yourself 2-1 down and you need a bit of magic, right? I was surprised that, he's not even been included because he is somebody who's a game changer. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think about that particular issue?
I think it's all right because I believe that again, once we reach the knockout stages, the squad can be revised, and I think at that stage they will look to maybe include him once we get an idea of who our potential opponents might be in terms of who actually gets through to the knockout stages. But I think at this stage, with these initial first six fixtures, I don't think a Palmer will be missed. I mean, given the way the players have been playing as well, when you're getting goals and if the whole team is able to chip in with goals, I don't think we'll miss Cole as much, and it will be a good opportunity to rest him again, like I said earlier. So I think that'll be that's more important, because again, we can't have him playing every game, every minute of every game, and then burning out when we need him at a key stage or risking injury, right?
Yeah, and what that does do is hopefully open up that 10 spot to a Connie or a Cassidy, who Cassidy, I mean, against Barrow, he played as a six, which I've never seen him play there before, and he did all right, but it was Barrow, and I think you could tell he was a bit he was happy to have the minutes, but he clearly wants to play further up the field. But yeah, I guess you're right. It's all about load management at this stage. But ultimately, I'd like to see some clarity on those two players in particular because they're very high potential players. Central midfield or central attacking midfield is clearly where we have a lot of depth. Yeah, I think these guys spending time at the club is really just idling their talents. They're wasting their time and we're wasting their time. So in a way, this competition could be a good testing ground for them, and Maresca should be able to make a decision on how he feels they'll be utilized going forward, and if there's a spot for them going forward. Just some other mentions. Really, I just want to see consistent minutes for Jorgensen. I think he should be in goal the entire tournament. Even if we do make the final, I don't want him swapped out for Sanchez. As I've mentioned, James, this should be a recovery season for James, a transition season for James, where maybe we see him playing more minutes here. Kane and Dewsbury Hall, Neto, Mudryk, and Mark Guiu. I think those guys should make this competition their own. And that's how they're going to end up being taken seriously by Maresca. So all these guys I've mentioned, I would love to see consistent minutes for that they're starting week in, week out in this competition and kind of building their way into the challenging for the first team. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Makes perfect sense because if you look at the likes of Mudryk, for example, he's not really looked his best, and I think he needs that sort of confidence to be starting, and this competition offers that to him. I think he should definitely be starting there. He did start, I guess, versus Barrow as well. But I know that in the recent game, like versus Brighton, for example, when he's come on, he's not looked like he's on the pace at all. So consistent minutes in a competition like this might do him well. Jorgensen as well, another interesting one you mentioned, because again, Brighton, Sanchez, howlers. So if you have someone who's capable and is able to show that capability, regularly in one competition, and he's basically pushing Sanchez, it could open the field on that as well, where we're seeing Jorgensen start in the league. So I think you made some good points, and of course we also mentioned earlier there are the young academy players who are named on the B list, right? You've got Max Merrick, Achimpong already is featured here and there. Harrison McMahon, Keanu Dyer, and Tyreek George. Again, all names that we have something to be excited about. So I'm hoping we get to see that and they're able to showcase that. And either way, just being on the B list offers them a chance to train with the first team. It's a chance for them to step up. So I think it's in on that front, it's a good competition for us to be in. And where you think we're going to go with the opponents we have, I mean, first off, do you want to talk a little bit about the format? I mean, what, 3 years ago, this whole conference league came about. So my first question was, even because since we've really been out of Champions League, I've not really followed European football. And when I heard
Yeah, I
Conference
can't
League,
blame you there, man.
yeah. So when I heard Conference League, my first question was, what the hell is even the Conference League? I think we both had that sort of like discussion about what it was and the new format and everything. It seems a fairly convoluted process to get to your knockout stages and everything, right?
Yeah, it seems convoluted, but when is UEFA ever simple? That's my real question, right? So
Yeah.
I think previously we got used to, I guess is it eight groups of in the Champions League, and I
Eight
think
groups
that's
of
how it
four.
worked. Yeah. So now what we've got is instead of having eight groups, they've merged the, let's say, first phase of the actual competition into a 36 team league phase, which is then followed by knockout rounds. So what happens is if you finish in the top eight teams of the 36, you qualify for the round of 16. But where it gets a bit convoluted is if you finish between ninth and 24th in the 36 team league phase, you then play a knockout playoff round. And essentially, that's a round of 16 in itself. And the winners of that, the eight winners of those games, will then qualify for the actual round of 16. So it's a bit convoluted. The reason UEFA are doing this is based on sporting merit. They want more balanced games. So, Chelsea should be playing a range of teams who have qualified for this competition, from the best to, let's say, the least quality, the lowest quality teams. But on the flip side, I guess it's just more games for UEFA and more money. So that needs to be pointed out, that that's probably the reason this format has changed. And of course, it's come on the back of the threat of the Super League. But yeah, I mean, essentially, whereas in the Champions League and the Europa League, this format has changed, and each team it plays eight games. Chelsea's only playing six, so I think for us that's pretty good. We're not playing as many games compared to Man City and Arsenal, etc., etc. Um, but how does the new format make you feel in terms of the jeopardy of the competition and the competitiveness of the first phase?
I mean, I go back to our first podcast when we were saying Servette is one of the opponents we had to play. That was, again, I believe, the playoff to get into the 36. So again, another twisted layer there. But I go back to that and I think, yes, it's more games for us to play. I wouldn't say there's any real jeopardy because I think, yeah, the teams we've been drawn up against, I think we should be beating these teams handily. for us, it's a chance to just say, yeah, okay, this is who we are. This is our footballing identity. This is how we blow teams out who are lower quality than us, and we're able to just progress and win this. I think that's basically what it is for me, this competition. If we look at the opponents as well, right? So we again, this was something that confused me as well, because we saw there was a 36 team um table, and then of course how the draw happened, they were split into pots, 6 pots of six, and each team plays five other teams with 3 matches home, 3 matches away. So initially I was like, oh, we're playing 6 teams home and away. There should be 12 matches. But then it's no, we're playing 6 teams, but we're playing five other teams, sorry. And there are 3 home games and 3 away games. So that was also a little convoluted. But our opponents, right? So we have Ghent up first. Then we have Panathinaikos, Noah, Heidenheim, Astana, and Shamrock Rovers. I mean, so again, not teams I really haven't heard of, except maybe for Ghent and Astana, and of course Panathinaikos being the Greek team. I haven't heard of these other teams so much, and I think we should be winning these. Like really, we should be winning these. What are your thoughts on the opponents?
Yeah, I mean, so we've got Ghent coming up very soon, and the good thing is it's at home. I think, the thing is with European competition where, it should be a cakewalk. The main thing is to make sure you don't pick up any unnecessary injuries, and also the traveling isn't, too detrimental to the fitness and, the cohesion of the squad. If we're looking at expectations, like we mentioned, really we should be winning every game. There's no doubt here. So it's more about like where a potential slips going to occur. And Ghent, we should be beating straight up because we've just played Brighton at home. We have Ghent at home, and then we're playing Forest at home. There's no traveling in this week, and then we've got the international break. It's more when we come back after that international break. The fixture list looks pretty intense because you've got Liverpool, then Panathinaikos, then Newcastle, and then you've got Noah FC or FC Noah. I'm not making these names up, by the way, so in case you're wondering. But yeah, Man United away, Noah, and then Arsenal at home. So these kind of weeks where you've got Liverpool and Newcastle, you really would prefer to have a full week of training and rest after the Liverpool game and prep for the Newcastle game. But now you've got Panathinaikos to deal with. So I wonder also how the squad's attitude is going to be come these very dense periods of the season. And I mean, if we're looking at the last 2 games of the league phase for this competition, we have Astana and Shamrock, and these are both Thursday games. Actually, all of our UEFA Conference League games are on a Thursday. It should be made clear, but the games after those Conference League games are usually on a Sunday. However, the last 2 games we're playing in the league phase for this competition, after those 2 games, which is against Astana and Shamrock, we're playing on a Saturday. So you're basically getting one less day of rest. And this is during a December period, which is notoriously very difficult in the Prem. So I think, unfortunately, our expectations of winning the competition are justifiably high, but actually there could be some banana skins here that really make us slip up, or we could incur a lot of injuries, or players could, go off the boil, off form because of fatigue. We could be seeing those kind of issues uh, just under halfway through the season or just before the winter break. So for me, that's where the potential downside of this competition is. In terms of opponents, like if we're just looking at them on paper, do we should be blowing them away? So yeah, I think that for me is the potential downside that could really take place. What do you think?
To be fair, I hadn't given it that much of thought, and you make some valid points. I mean, injuries, yes, the fixture congestion for sure. Like looking at the calendar, you're right. Of course, Astana, and then there's Brentford at home, and then Shamrock is again on a Thursday, and then you've got an away trip to Everton. And then in that period, you've got again Fulham, Ipswich, Palace, to close out the year and see the first game in the new year. So it is going to be a very busy period. And I mean, I'm optimistic more so given how we've played. Obviously, I didn't think we would get our first home win in the Premier League versus Brighton, but we did so, and we did so with some real quality from Cole Palmer. So I am still optimistic, but I understand the reservation there. So in terms of the fixtures, then how do you see us closing out this initial league phase? If you had to look at it, how many wins, how many losses, how many draws? What do you think?
Yeah, I think probably 3 wins, 1 loss, and a draw. I actually think maybe we win the first 3 games and a bit of complacency, but also fatigue sets in. We probably lose the fourth game and then draw the last two. We got to remember also the B team has not played very well. Even against Barrow, which I think they're a side in League Two. For the first 5 minutes, we made them look like they were pressing us very intensely, and we looked under the cosh. But frankly, it's because we couldn't pass the ball for 5 yards. So yeah, I think if you're looking at players like Disasi, Badia Shield, passing the ball out from the back in this competition, you're always liable, right? So especially once you win a few games in this competition, I can see some complacency setting in there, particularly if they don't, then get game time in the first team in the Premier League. So yeah, I'm again a little bit of a negative Nancy here, but what do you have us doing for this phase of the comp?
I was always saying dub after dub after dub. I was saying 6 wins, but I think you've sort of brought me down a little bit. Maybe four wins and two draws. Let's call it. I don't think we should be dropping points here. So 4 wins and two draws.
No, I just don't like the fact that you said I was bringing you down. So you know what? We're putting you down for 6 dubs, okay?
Okay, six
And
wins.
every point dropped is a beer for me. Yeah.
Done. I'm down for that. All right. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
that's that's great. That's good news for me and my diet. But I
Okay.
also think that that wraps up our a bit of a chat on the Conference League. What do you think about jumping into a bit of a review of the month of September? We played 5 games: Palace at home, Bournemouth away, West Ham away, Barrow at home, and Brighton at home. So, do you wanna start us off with the Palace game? Do you remember that far back?
Yeah, I know I said I don't remember a lot, but I do remember we were quite shit, right? It was a 1-1 draw, a game of two halves essentially, right?
Yeah, that's the one. Although it sounds like a lot of other Chelsea games in the last 2 seasons, but yeah, I think Palace. Honestly, I think they were good value for the point. So fair play to them. They always know how to play against us, and they were set up very well on the counter. Eze's goal was a fine finish as well.
Yeah, I do
But
remember that.
like you said, game of two halves. I think maybe you were thinking at that time, is September going to be like last year's September where we're watching a lot of XG created, but not a lot of goals?
Yeah, yeah, no, fair. I mean, I think that was a common trend, not just for September, but yeah, I remember that conversation coming up very strongly. But I think we're comfortably winning games sometimes on XG, so that's definitely something to look out for. But it was a well-deserved draw on both sides, I think. And then of course we had Bournemouth, which was a trip away, and I remember you saying that they're going to cause us some trouble with the way our has been and the way they play. But I think we managed to eke out a win there, a 1-0 away win. What was your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that there was only one goal in this game, but guess what? I think there were like 15 or 16 yellow cards. We've broken a record here for the most yellow cards in a Premier League game. I'm just surprised there was only one goal in this game. Bournemouth again showed us that if a team presses up high enough the pitch against us, we can create issues for ourselves. But you know what? I think we deserve this on the balance of XG over the season. We've created a lot already so far, and that Palace game showed that okay, fine, we don't take a chance there, but we've made up for it, let's say, in Bournemouth. And then we followed that up with another away win and another away clean sheet, which sounds very weird to say. We actually never talk about clean sheets on this pod. I think Maresca must be pretty chuffed with those back-to-back results.
Yeah, for sure. And the West Ham clean sheet was definitely one that was again, you go back to the times we've met in previous seasons recently, and there's always been like a so check at the near post, at the far post on a set piece is it's like a West Ham Chelsea like given, but it didn't happen. So I was quite happy with that. And I mean, can we just spare a minute for Nicholas Jackson? He's been looking a lot more clinical than last season. And did you see this stat which was pulled up about the number of goal involvements since last year? Yeah, so Nicholas Jackson, man, he's got 26 goal involvements, so most goals and assists, 26. And of
I think
course,
you're also referring to the fact that it's non-penalty, right?
non-penalty. And of course, you have Cole Palmer up there with 43 goal contributions. But Nicholas Jackson features up there. He's number 8 in that list. I think everyone's so caught up in how much he or how what's the opposite of clinical, how rubbish his finishing can be at times that when he is doing the work, it's going under the radar. But I mean, two quick goals against West Ham. I think he's looking good, man.
Yeah, I look, man, I back it. I back what you're saying. My only concern is he can be a bit of a streaky player, right? Granted, look, like he's looking good in the system, which is a bonus for Maresca and a bonus for the fans. You know, sometimes he's just a willing runner, right? At the end of the day, if you're playing against a low block, he's not got much space to run into. So he may look like he's doing nothing. But, you know, when you're playing against teams that push up or we're countering against teams, you can see his quality. So it's just about him finding his consistency in front of goal, and hopefully playing consistent minutes and in a consistent system with the same players around him that should also, you know, come over time. My question is, yeah, is he gonna do this, you know, for the next, I guess, 6, 7 months of the season? Can he keep it up? So that's the biggest question for me.
Remains to be seen, but I think he's taken Mikel's comments personally. He even showed up, I mean, for what it's worth, versus Brighton again. He set up Cole Palmer with a team sort of pass. He could have gone one on one and probably fluffed his lines and missed it, and we would have been calling him selfish. But he squared it and he gave Cole the goal. So, yeah, I think we'll be seeing him come good. Might be early days. There's still rumors of Osimhen happening in January or maybe in the next summer window, but we may find we don't need him. I don't know. Let's see. And then, of course, after West Ham, we had Barrow in the Carabao Cup, comfortable 5-0 route. What were your thoughts on that?
I mean, in Nkunku hat trick, I liked his the hat trick clinching goal because he's basically tackled their goalkeeper. And you know what? You know, I just like to see that it's a game against Barrow. The guy can literally chill, try and make sure he doesn't get an injury, but he's still putting himself about. So ultimately, it is Barrow, but you have to play what's in front of you and you have to beat them. So, look, we've seen Chelsea in years gone past. Our good teams may have been complacent in these games, and actually, you know, this could have been an upset. Our shitty teams would have made this look extremely difficult and gone to extra time and penalties in this game. So, look, I think overall, compared to what we're used to, this is a good result. And you know, going back to our discussion with Jackson, and it kind of applies to this Barrow result, right? Like if we want to get to the levels we were at, you know, I guess during the Abramovich era where we were winning and challenging for trophies, right? You're going to need these sort of games where, yeah, like I don't even have to bat an eyelid at Barrow. I'm going to go and beat them 5-0. So again, you're going to need a striker, Jackson, who is you're not even questioning that he's scoring whether he can score 15 plus goals a season. You see what I mean? So once we once we kind of frame the discussion back in the light of like the targets, of being challengers, I think I actually kind of it kind of validates what people are saying, the hesitancy around Jackson and the team. So yeah, it's important to keep all of that in mind.
Yeah, fair. I think I'm just encouraged by what I'm seeing. There's fluidity, there's goals coming in, there's even the Brighton result, which we'll get to, right? So 4-2 win. Cole Palmer stole the show, and honestly, Sanchez just did the opposite of what Cole Palmer did. Absolutely horrific performance. And I mean, he we did well to not let them score more, but the two goals that they scored were purely down to his errors. But in terms of just the squad, right? So you've got a 4-2 win, but there were more opportunities. I mean, Cole Palmer hit the woodwork twice. Jackson had two blocks, late blocks to deny him goals, right? There is movement, there is some good play on the pitch, there are opportunities being created. I think unlike last season where he was making the wrong decisions, specifically Jackson. He was making the wrong decisions, and then his finishing was where he should be hitting the target. He's going completely off the target, at least versus Brighton. Like he didn't get two goals at least because Brighton had some clutch defending, like clearances off the line. So that is just down to being unlucky. I think it's not down to his quality, and I think that's the difference that I'm seeing. So in those kind of moments, you don't blame your striker. I think you have to just sort of say, okay, look, the guy did everything right, and he was just unlucky, you know. And I think that's the difference. That's one of the reasons I'm more um, optimistic with what I'm seeing than last season, you know.
Yeah, fair enough, man. Like, look, the other thing to remember, and this is why you can kind of justifiably be encouraged, because the guy's 23, right?
Exactly.
I mean, Drogba came good and was good till his like early to mid 30s for us. So, I mean, he kept that going for ages, right? So, time, like you said, time will tell, but yeah, fair enough. You can definitely be encouraged. Another good win, I guess, against Brighton. If we're being critical, I guess we should be critical, right? We're talking about it on a podcast, so yeah, we should be pretty critical here. Yeah, two goals conceded, and again, it comes through creating our own problems, right? It's almost like hitting the self-destruct button. When this was happening under Pochettino, even though the players, had developed a resiliency, there wasn't that system in place to know how they were going to make chances. Even though we've conceded two goals against Brighton, these guys have the resiliency mentally, but they also know how to create chances, how they're going to do it within the system they're being told to play. And we've conceded two goals, but we've scored four, and the XG was in our favor. So when I see that, I feel much better about the result. Today against Bournemouth, amazing 3 points, no complaints here whatsoever. It says a lot that you can hang in a game, right? But there's a bit of shade there, right? Because if you lose the XG battle, you're like, maybe we actually weren't that good, which we weren't. So it's always nice actually to kind of win, at least for me. It's always nice when I see we win the XG and we actually win the game, those two things being aligned.
Mm, makes sense. That's an interesting way to look at it. So yeah, that closes a good September, I think.
Yeah, so we're sitting in the Champions League
Or
spot of fourth. Right now, Liverpool are top on 15 points, and we are 2 points behind, tied on points with Aston Villa. So you said it was a good September. It was way better than what I expected to happen. I'll hold my hands up and say I was totally wrong on my predictions. So next time, maybe just don't ask me to do them. It was the Palace game, right? That's the only thing you could have changed. The only result we could have improved on. So yeah, fair point. It was a really good month.
yeah, and too bad because we're going right into our October preview, right? So you're gonna have to predict So we've got Ghent at home to kick off the Conference League. Then we've got Forest at home, Liverpool on the road, Panathinaikos away, and Newcastle at home. And if I'm not wrong, we'll be playing them again because they'll get through in the Carabao Cup, and we'll be facing them at the end of the month as well for that. So two back-to-back games versus Newcastle should be how we close out the month. So what are your thoughts on those fixtures, Sharon? What are your predictions?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've covered Ghent already. We've both said we're going to win that game. Forest, man, I'm going to try and say we actually win a Premier League game. This might be the first one of the year that I've actually predicted we win. So, yo, don't come after me if we drop points in this. And then I think we have a bit of an international break. So coming back, Liverpool away, I think we lose. That's pretty straightforward. I like what Arne Slot's doing with Liverpool, and I don't think we are at their caliber yet. I hope we make it interesting. The mentality of this squad could carry us a long way in that game. I just think quality wise, maybe they've still got enough over us. Panathinaikos is a win for me, and then Newcastle in the league. I think that's going to be a draw. Hopefully, we beat them in the cup. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I don't actually know whether we're going to be home or away in that tie for the cup. If we're away, I'll put us down for a loss. If we're at home, I'll take a win. What do you reckon?
Okay, interesting. For me, I think it's Ghent win, Forest win. I'm gonna go draw with Liverpool. I think we'll be able to stack up to them. Panathinaikos as well, a win. Newcastle, let's call it a draw. I think it's a draw in the league, and in the Carabao Cup, we will beat them because we want to progress. I think any chance of silverware, the cups should be somewhere we focus on. So I think we go for them in the cup, and we get a win in the cup, assuming we're playing them, and a draw in the league. So two draws and a win in the league, in October for me, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that sounds fair enough. The Liverpool game is going to be very juicy after the international break.
Yeah, should be fun. I think it'll be a good result because you go back to City and again, we did lose, but it's not like we weren't in the game. It's just that we didn't take our chances. I think if we're able to, given that we've seen a sort of improvement in the finishing as well, I think that's why I'm saying we should get the draw over a loss. But we never know. We'll have to see how it goes, right?
We'll have to see how Sanchez plays, my friend.
Yeah, he might be out for all we know. It was interesting. He made two errors versus Brighton, and Maresca actually said that the second type of error, he said we'll concede one goal like that every 10 games or so.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure about that ratio. It feels like once every 3, 4 games, but I back Maresca's approach. He's said Sanchez is his number one going into the season, and he's giving him time and he's giving him kind of the support. Previous managers with larger egos would have already been on Sanchez's back, basically blaming him for potentially, like losing clean sheets and making mistakes and all that, which are his fault, but ultimately you could say these are systemic issues, right? So Maresca, rather than kind of lambasting the guy or using him as a scapegoat, is essentially just saying that look, it's clearly a systemic issue. Sanchez is good quality. If he gets even this season to play 30 games, he can't then, say, "Oh, okay, I wasn't given a chance at Chelsea," right? And Maresca comes out looking like a better manager as a result and a better tactician as well, because he understands that, okay, I'm predicting we make X amount of errors or these type of errors for so many games. And that's also his target, right? That's what he's telling Sanchez. He's telling him like, look, this is my expectation, but he's doing it in a way which also supports the player. So I can kind of see where he's like how he's approaching it and the merits to that. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
No, I mean, we hope that Sanchez rewards the faith with less errors because he's made some good saves. If he can continue that and reduce the errors, I think we're good. So, all in all, it should be a good October, and I think, yeah, we will be in a good position come end of the month, I hope.
Yeah, me too. So, I also wanted to just touch on the Newcastle game, I
Hmm.
think last year they did suffer in the Champions League or having that extra load, match load of the Champions League. I think
Hmm.
this season, without any sort of European competition, correct me if I'm wrong, their system could actually cause us a lot of problems. A couple of seasons ago, when they were pressing very, very intensely under Eddie Howe, and they had a full strength squad. They caused us a lot of problems at Stamford Bridge, and if their players are coming into this well rested, while we've gone away to Greece and well, one drawn or lost against Panathinaikos doesn't really matter. We're looking at a huge mismatch in terms of energy. And Newcastle under Eddie Howe, extremely well organized, extremely intense presses. So I think we've both predicted a draw on this. I already can't remember my prediction, so I guess there's that. But yeah, I think it's going to be an extremely intense game, extremely intense.
Yeah, for sure. So they aren't in any European competition, so they do have the full week of rest. But at the same time, having said that, we also did just talk about load management. You do have a probably a different squad playing in Greece versus the squad that's going to start the game, at Stamford Bridge versus Newcastle. So on that front, I think a draw seems fair. We should be the beneficiaries of the load management at that stage. It'll be like a fresh starting 11 that's gone from Liverpool into Panathinaikos into Newcastle.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, you're right, because hopefully none of our first teamers are playing against Panathinaikos, especially because it's the second game of the Conference League. So there's plenty of points to pick up after that game in case there's a slip up. But
Exactly.
it's now a question of how well do we play out of an opponent's press, and that's not something I've been overly confident with. I still see Sanchez trying to move the ball long distance, even though perhaps, he could be a little bit riskier. And then I guess he's just picking the wrong moments to be risky. So also in the meanwhile, you've got players like Colwill who have a very good passing range, but it just takes one pass to go astray. When teams press us so high up. So that I think this is something the Newcastle game is going to show us what our level is at when it comes to playing against an extremely high, extremely intense press.
Yeah, fair enough. This will be a nice point of discussion when we're doing the review and we're actually looking back to how the performance was. So with that, I think we're done. Episode 3, We Burn Blue. We'll be back soon. It's me, Prashant, signing off. Any last words, Sharon?
I think just here's to hopefully another good month in the Chelsea Blue.